Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome back to another episode. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about a very important subject to basically everyone out there. Mexico is turning into a digital country. That's right. Sorry, you're trying to avoid traffic here. As you guys can see, I'm in the middle of the streets as usual. And all right, I already got fans waving hi at me. But anyway, so we're going to be talking about Mexico is turning into a cashless society. Mexico is turning into, again, the digital prison that a lot of you guys are trying to escape. Bruh. But is that really the truth? Is that really what's going on? Or is there other things going on that maybe, you guys might not be aware of? Well, you already know what we do on this channel. We're gonna start talking about that, and we're gonna go deep. We're gonna go real deep, all right, as to what all that means, because again, very recently, the president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, she announced that everyone now is gonna have a digital corp, basically a digital ID. And so we're gonna go deep into that. They're gonna, they've trying to implement a cashless society out here, and so on and so forth. But again, for those of you guys that have known me long enough, been following me for years, you already know that this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart, and I've been talking about for years. Maybe not as often as I would like to these days, but regardless, hey, this is the perfect time to do this. And why am I out here? Why am I out here in this beautiful part of the city? Well, because if you guys remember, again, my older videos, I used to live right not that far down that street. And in the 7+ years that I've been here, this area has become extremely gentrified. Again, everybody has their qualms on that. We're not going to talk about gentrification in this episode. I talk about that in plenty of other episodes. And today we're going to be talking about, well, what is the state of Mexico as it pertains to, well, all the changes that are happening out in the world. So right here we are in the Parque Santa Ana. This is the church right here at the Parque Santa Ana. I used to come through here all the time, and I used to hang out at this park. And in fact, I used to actually literally, again, when I would do my original walks and talks, I would leave my house all the way over there and make my way towards here. Oh man, sorry about the noise. It seems like they're pumping the porta potties right now. Oh my goodness. Interesting. All right, let's see if we can get through this, without too much noise. My apologies for all the noise. But look at this. Beautiful. So, horrible timing, huh? Horrible timing. But look, when I moved here 7 years ago, we didn't have porta potties. This park did not look the way it did. We didn't have those buses. We didn't have a lot of the things that we have and that you're looking at right now. Again, all the buildings are nice and beautified, gentrified, whatever you want to call it. Again, we got things like porta potties out here. Look at this, we got a nice museum now. So many things. Again, I apologize for the noise. We're trying to get away from that noise as soon as possible. I'm trying to walk and talk here. More walking and less standing around. But anyways, you guys can come and check out my other videos where I go a little deeper into walking around this park, walking around this area. Again, if you watch my older videos, you get to see what this park used to look like, what this area used to look like, and so on and so forth. But you guys already know how we do here on this channel. I like to keep the camera pointed forward so you guys can see exactly what I'm seeing, so there's no misinterpretation with anything. So over there is where I had one of my first meals ever. I highly recommend that when you're visiting here, you come check out Parque Santa Ana and go have a meal over there. And you're gonna get some real authentic Yucatecan cuisine. All right. So anywho's, check out how much this has changed. Everything's changed. Again, if you've been following me long enough, or you've been watching, what's been going on out here in this city long enough, you'd see all the changes. Look at this. This again is still, very touristy and very busy here. But again, look, the reason I'm showing you all this and the reason we're starting out here is, like I said, we have, been documenting the changes that have been happening in this city and in Mexico for years now. Here, real quick, I wanted to show you. So Paseo Montejo is all the way over there. So we're right off Paseo Montejo, and we're going to be walking down Calle 60 today. So basically 60th, all right? But again, look, you can see, look, there's cameras. You know, there's the digital walking thing. You know, again, you see the buildings. Everything has changed. Everything has gotten more modern. And for some people, that's good. For some people, not so good. It all really depends on who you are. All right, so let's get on ahead and walk on this side. There's a little bit more sunlight here, so I'm gonna be burning up in the sun, so I can, you know, show you guys the best possible view here. Hola, hola. So, you know, right off the bat, everyone's still friendly, everyone's still amazing. This is still a beautiful and amazing place to be, and I highly recommend it for anyone else out there, you know, that's interested in wanting to, you know, visit an amazing and beautiful part of Mexico that sometimes gets a little overlooked because, well, you know, we're all the way out here and all the way in the southeastern region of Mexico, and you know, a lot of people prefer going to Cancun and all these other places, but it seems like these days this is the popular spot. This is where people want to, you know, come out and hang out. And so, hola. Everyone is, you know, very nice and very friendly. A lot friendlier, nicer than they were years ago. So again, just going to show you about the conversation, you know, when it comes to, hey, you know, our, you know, do they hate gringos? You know, do they hate Americans? Do they hate foreigners out here? No, they don't. In fact, you know, they show me more love these days than they ever have before. Not just me, but a lot of you guys out there in the audience as well that have come and visited these areas and visited other parts of Mexico. Now, again, we're not talking about gentrification. We're not talking about safety. We're not talking about any of that stuff today. Today, we're going to be talking about, again, what does it mean that now Mexico, basically the president of Mexico, has now basically forced everybody to go on ahead and get a biometric ID. What does that mean for you as a foreigner coming out here? What does that mean for your residency? What does that mean for, again, your future out here? By the way, I just got some coffee from here. I just didn't want to start the show here. I wanted to show, you know, start the show all the way at the park, but just to show you exactly where my favorite coffee shop is, that I'm sure most of you guys already know fully well. So shout out to them. I got my coffee in hand, and now we're going to walk all the way. We're going to walk all the way through El Centro, and we're going to walk all the way to Parque San Juan. All right, and the reason I'm doing this and the reason I'm going through here is so I can show you. I can show you literally, you know, I mean, you can see with your own eyes, you know, how this whole digitization is actually going to work or not work. Because as I've been harping on for years and years and years, and I'm going to still harp on, yeah, no, this is Mexico is not going to be cashless any day soon. The whole biometric ID, again, you know, seems like most Mexicans are, you know, going against it. Most Mexicans are trying to boycott it. Most Mexicans, believe it or not, are actually turning against the government in this sense. And like I said, you know, they want to boycott it. They're not happy with the whole providing more information to the government. Because out here in this country, as I always talk about freedom, so much freedom in this country, part of that freedom is the fact that, you know, out here, they still respect your privacy. You know, your privacy is still, you know, very, very important, and then very important to a lot of Mexicans. And so for a lot of Mexicans, you know, the whole idea that now they got to provide all this information to the government, you know, everything from, you know, fingerprints to, you know, whatchamacallit, a iris scan, you know, the eyeball scan. Here, let's go this way. Little cat store, all kinds of goodies in here. Let's go through here. It's very nice, very beautiful. Little oasis here in the middle of the concrete jungle. Look at this, very nice. Buenos dias.
Buenos dias.
All kinds of awesome stuff here. All right, so the reason I'm going through here is to show you exactly how this is not going to work. All right, you know, some people think it's going to work. I think it's not going to work, because again, they're trying to implement this. They're trying to implement everyone to use debit cards, digital digital payment options. They want people to start using, you know, again, they want people to get away from cash, and they want people to start using the more, you know, digital friendly options, which, you know, for a lot of you guys out there in the audience, you know exactly what that means. That means more control, That means, you know, more, you know, more looking into what you're doing every day, and eventually censorship and all these other things that nobody asks for, nobody wants. So when they announced, when Claudia, so let me give you a little backstory real quick here. So in Mexico right now, when Claudia Sheinbaum got elected president, not only did her party win, but her party also won the House and the Senate. Okay, basically, you know, their version of the House of Representatives and Congress and Senate. You know, basically it's all run by the same, you know, by the same political party. And because of that, well, you know, they have a lot of pull, a lot of push when it comes to, you know, pushing their own agenda and pushing, you know, the laws and the changes that they want. Now, some of the changes are very welcome and a lot of people are very happy with it, because it's basically putting a lot more money in the pockets of the typical everyday Mexican. But, you know, honestly, you know, some Mexicans, and in fact, a lot of Mexicans these days are not as happy as I originally thought, or a lot of us originally thought. And so this is one of those things, you know. So, you know, right now, you know, with the whole digitization of the ID, which is, again, the ID out here is very different than the ID might be in your own home country. But the identification out here is mainly used as a voting ID. It's your voting registration, your voting card. So, and that's the equivalent of like your social security number or social security card back in the USA. You know, out here, certain IDs, like let's say a driver's license, is only used for driving and nothing else. It's not an official ID. You know, when it comes to your passport, you know, sure, that's an official ID, but that's not really your official ID. You know, your official ID is your INE, which is, you know, basically your voting registration card. You know, and that's the identification that you would present everywhere. You know, whenever you got to go through any kind of any kind of bureaucracy out here. You know, so let's say you got to, you know, let's say you want to file a police report. Well, you got to have your INE. Let's say that you want to do, so this is a Parque. I forgot which Parque this one is. But anyways, there's music playing. But anyways, there's a very touristy spot here, you know, for anyone that's interested. But anyways, that ID, what they're trying to do now, well, it's not that they're trying to do. They've already passed the laws to make this a reality, and they're already implementing it probably by the time that you're watching this, all right? And so what does that mean? Well, now they're requiring, and they're going to be forcing all Mexicans, buenos dias, you know, all Mexicans, everyone, to now not only get this ID, but to connect themselves to the grid, and the government is the one that's going to be controlling all of that. So a lot of Mexicans are not happy with that, because that's an invasion of their privacy. And they already feel a certain kind of way of letting that information out to corporations. You know, whenever you're like, you know, for a lot of us, let's say you have your banking app or your, you know, your Amazon app, or, you know, whatever, and they ask for all this information. You know, a lot of Mexicans already, you know, feel a certain kind of way. They're not happy about the fact that they got to provide so much information. You know, again, banking information, tax ID, you know, all this other stuff that wasn't, you know, something that they ever asked for not that long ago. And so a lot of Mexicans, believe it or not, they have been actually pushing back on this, and they've actually have been rejecting a lot of these changes. And this is no different. Again, when you look at, you know, a lot of the social media, when you ask a typical Mexican these days, you know, what do they feel? How do they feel about this new biometric, you know, digital ID? Most of them are saying, you know what, we're just not going to participate. They can't force us to get it. We don't need it. And again, you know, when you look at the majority of how Mexicans live and conduct business out here, once you're living out here, once you're, you know, been out here and experienced it firsthand, you realize very quickly you don't need any kind of digital imprint at all, period, end of story. In fact, there's many Mexicans, a good portion of the population, they don't even have any kind of you know, digital imprint, you know, meaning some of them don't even have a bank account, for crying out loud, you know, let alone, you know, getting any kind of like special ID. Now, again, I know for a lot of people, a lot of Mexicans, they're not going to have much of a choice when it comes to getting this ID, because they're starting to implement this in children, you know, as they get born, you know, as they're entering school, as they're doing all kinds of things. You know, they're requiring, you know, the younger folk to now get this ID. But when it comes to like all the older folk, they have options. They got many options. And one of those options is the fact that they do not have to participate, and they will not participate. There's always a way around it. Again, you know, one of the jokes that a lot of the Mexicans, you know, have been saying throughout this whole process is the fact that, like, they're saying, oh, okay, so they're going to force us common folk to get these digital IDs, right? So does that mean that all the cartel members, you know, and all the bad hombres out in the street, they're also going to be on the digital grid? So that means that we're going to, you know, now be able to, you know, track them all and capture them all? Yeah, exactly. So, like, again, if you know how Mexico works and you've been living here long enough, you realize very, very, very quickly that, like, you don't have to participate in any of these government programs. You don't have to participate in forcing, and getting any kind of ID or anything like that. It's not like the first, well, this is the first world. Again, they have more rights here than we do back home. But what I'm saying is that the fact that, you know, out here, you know, it's very different for them to force. All right, let's get on this end. It's probably going to be easier with the lighting. It's too dark over there. But anyways, you know, for a lot of people, again, look at all these vendors here, you know, just selling anything on the side of the road. You know, none of these people have to have any kind of ID. As much as they try to push away some of these vendors, or they try to force a lot of these vendors to, like, get some sort of permit in order to sell in certain areas. Well, what they do is that, like, for example, if they cannot sell in this area because now all of a sudden they need a special permit, they need a special ID, they need a special, well, whatever. Some of them are that can get that, will, you know, still sell in these areas. And there's many ways to get those IDs. Or they're just going to go to other parts of the city and sell in those other parts of the city where they're, you know, no one's even asking, no one's even batting an eye. You know, no one even really cares. It's a different, you know, system. And so, you know, the thing is that I understand a lot of you guys out there in the audience might be worried about what all this means. But look, you know what? Before I started this video, I was actually dropped off my really good friend Dave, because he was helping me run some errands.
Hello, brother.
Hola, ¿cómo estás? Bien.
Trying to play a lot of songs, brother.
Bueno, vente.
Yeah.
Bueno, habla en español si quiere, inglés, español, como quiera.
Whatever, brother.
Here, look, he's gonna play a little song for us.
Okay.
Look at that. What a great guy.
He sent it from my brother from another mother.
That's right, that's right. Look at that. Another hit.
For all my people.
That's right, that's right.
From Merida.
That's right. Ay, muchas gracias, man. Muchas gracias. Oye,
Gracias, hermano.
Sí. Oye, thank you. Have a good one.
Gracias.
Oye,
You too, brother.
hasta luego. Look at that. So, yeah, long story short, I mean, like that guy, exactly, just like all these vendors and all the people, you know, they're out here just doing regular jobs, regular whatever. Look at this guy right here. Do you think this guy's gonna really be complying with any kind of digital ID, digital prison, any kind of anything? No, that guy accepts only cash. Buenos dias. You know, he doesn't accept smiles, but hey, it is what it is, you know, whatever, you know. And so that's the thing, you know. So look, the reason I'm bringing you in this area is because right here is a touristy area, you know, which is the area that you would, you know, likely see a lot of, you know, people having to comply, you know, with some of these new rules, regulations, laws, whatever it is. But at the same time, you see plenty of people that don't. So for example, you know, like the businesses, you know, might be complying somewhat, but not really. You know what I mean? They might still be hiring employees, and they're not going to be asking for ID or this and that and all kinds of other information that is required to do so in other countries or else. You know, you know, so like that's the thing. It's like you got to look at it holistically. You got to look at the whole big picture and really see, you know, how it's going to be affecting everyone. Now, again, in the USA, if all of a sudden these businesses don't start complying with all these draconian laws and regulations, well, they're going to get a paid a visit by the inspector, by the police officer, by all these authority figures, and basically get shut down immediately just simply for not complying. Again, whether it's taxes or whether it's the employee situation or whatever it is. And so out here, it's not like that at all. You know what I mean? Like, it's not even anywhere remotely close to that. So again, look at these vendors out here. Hola, buenos días.
Which one?
No, no fumo. Gracias, gracias. Look at this. So we're here at in the Centro, okay, right there. You know, the most touristy area. This is the Catedral, the cathedral. Look at that. You know, just going down east, south, and west. All right. So let's continue our walking and talking here. So I mean, that's the thing. You know, when you look at how like daily life is lived out here, you know, most people are not going to comply, you know, for whatever reason, you know, whether they don't want their privacy, you know, whether they care about their privacy and they don't want to just give that up to the government, or whether they don't want to continue paying taxes, or whatever it is, you know, there's a lot of incentive for a lot of people to not comply. So not just that, but again, this also goes with the digitization of money, and how I've talked about it since day one, since I've been here, you know, how this area is you know, Mexico in particular, you know, all of Mexico. So by the way, this is town hall, or basically the governor's palace. You know, that's where he would you know, when they're doing Mexican Independence Day, he comes out on there and shouts and does a whole Mexican thing. You know, hopefully I'll show you in the future once we get to that date. Mexico shares a birthday with me. My birthday is September 18th. Mexico's birthday is on the 15th and 16th, depending on who you're asking. Anyway, so again, by the way, this is really busy and really packed today. You know, I was expecting a lot less people. Today's a Wednesday at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and there's a lot of tourists out, there's a lot of people out, and again, you got the tourist bus. But yeah, so like I was saying, so Mexico is a very, very cash friendly country. In fact, they prefer cash. They prefer cash, and they prefer hard money, assets, whatever it is, over any kind of digital money. And so, sure, by the way, they've really upgraded this park. Look at all the fauna, look at all the trees, look at this, look at all the whatchamacallit, all the flowers, everything. Wow, they've really upgraded the park. Yeah, because a lot of people were complaining when they upgraded the park. They changed the park, that they took a lot of trees out, they cut down a lot of you know, plants. And look at this. Wow, it's amazing. By the way, it's been raining a lot. The rain, as you guys can see, makes everything all better again. All right, so let's just keep walking and talking here. Here, let's go make our way around this way. So as I was saying, you know, out here, you know, cash is king. It's just as simple as that. And there's so many people that just depend on a cash only environment, and that's not going to change anytime soon. And as I said, you know, why do a lot of people prefer cash? Well, it's because, again, the government doesn't have to, you know, the government keeps its grubby hands off of your money. All right, whether it's through taxes or through again, the digital imprint that you leave behind every time that you swipe your card, and they know everything about you and everywhere you've been and everything you're doing, and so on and so forth. And so a lot of people here, believe it or not, you know, it doesn't matter what level of society you're in, no matter if you're just a simple street vendor or a taxi driver or you're working at the bank or whatever, they all know the implications of what giving up your freedoms really mean. Oh, what's going on here? Let's just walk through here. Oh, I guess it's like some free medical services stuff, as if they don't already have amazing healthcare and free medical stuff. Cool. Very nice. Look at this. Amazing. Awesome. Look at this. What a beautiful thing. Wow. You know, I always wonder why, you know, the US cannot have anything even remotely similar to this. Anyways, look at this. We are in the, look at it, even said railings. This place is getting so popular here. Look, with the famous Merida sign, people getting their pictures taken, doing all the beautiful touristy stuff. What a great place. Look at that. All right. Let's keep walking here. We got a lot more walking to do, a lot more talking to do. But yeah, long story short, you know, the whole cash only environment. Okay, there's like a dead end over there, so I'm not gonna walk down that way. Let's just keep walking through here. So, as I was saying, you know, for a lot of Mexicans, you know, they're just, you know, the cash only environment is something that many Mexicans, you know, they don't want to move away from. They're just not going to move away from. It's just not going to happen. Now, again, as the newer generations are coming online, you know, of course, a lot of younger Mexicans, they want to use their bank cards, their credit cards, their digital payment systems. You know, they want things to be a lot easier. We all do. We enjoy, you know, a lot of benefits when it comes from the digitization of all this stuff. But the reality is that, look, I'm going to give you another thing that just happened out here as well. So not only did the Mexican government now, you know, are they now all of a sudden requiring, you know, the digital corp? And again, the government basically says, yeah, look, we're the reason that we're putting, you know, making all these digital IDs for everybody is because we want to track all of you guys, but it's for your own good. And so that way, when you get kidnapped or you get in like some sort of trouble, you know, out there, you know, some bad thing happens to you and the police, you know, need to find you, or people need to locate you, or people, you know, whatever, anything that happens, well, now we can find you. But again, a lot of people are saying, like, hey, you know, how come you don't just, instead of working on a solution, you know, to find us when something happens, why not just stop the crime to begin with? You know, why not work on that instead? So again, you know, a lot of cynicism from the local Mexican population, and a lot of distrust, as everyone and anyone should have a very healthy distrust of your government. Again, not saying going against the government or anything like that, not by any stretch of the imagination. But again, a healthy distrust and a healthy accountability, you know, that goes along, you know, with, you know, the government. So a lot of people out here, you know, they have a lot of that. So, you know, going back to what I was saying, one of the things that has simultaneously happened, you know, while they're now starting to require a more digitization, they're starting to require a little bit more digitization of the yeah, sorry about the rude interruption. It seems like I was getting a little bit too hot and heavy with the things that I was talking about, and the camera just shut off on its own. It has nothing to do with the fact that it's 100 degrees outside and like 95% humidity, because again, we're in the middle of the hot rainy season towards the end of summer. It was more about what I had, you know, it was what I was saying was too hot. Bruh. Anyways, all right, enough of my jokes, you know, that fall flat. All right, so where were we? We were walking across the street over there before the camera shut off. So let's just get back to what we were talking about. So again, as I was saying, you know, there's a lot of contradicting things that are going on at the moment, you know, as it pertains to, you know, you know, what's going on, you know, with the whole digitization of one of this, you know, what's going on with that digitization of everything. So again, on one end, you know, the government is seemingly almost forcing citizens, you know, to you know, use digital bank cards, you know, use your digital ID, digital you know, money, right? You know, moving away from cash, right? That's one end. You know, one end is that they're, you know, they want you to use all these digital payment systems instead of cash. And then on the other end, you know, they're making it very difficult for businesses to accept credit, to accept, you know, any kind of digital money. And let me explain, what do I mean by that? So, you know, part of what's going on with all that is the fact that, you know, right now, all right, I'm trying to, yeah, I think this will be better here. All right, so right now, what they're doing, I'm trying to figure out, probably just walk down this way. Yeah, sorry, just trying to you know, walk and talk at the same time and chew gum. It's not easy, guys. All right, I'll tell you that. It might seem easy, but it's not. Anyway, so on one end, you know, all of these businesses, it doesn't matter what the business is, man. Even the most you know, lowly business on the side of the road, most businesses these days, well, they have the ability to accept, you know, your digital payment. They just do. And again, I'm get surprised each and every day. You know, when I look, the other day I was at the little tiendita, I was at the little you know, corner store, which always only accepts cash. And I just happened to ask the guy, and I'm like, hey, would you happen to accept cards here? I'm a little low on cash. And he's like, yeah, of course, we accept cards, no problem. So I was able to pay with my card, and it was great. It was wonderful. So like I said, there's benefits to this. But right now, one of the brand new laws that they just passed, the government passed, is the fact that now, so what was going on is that back in the day, basically whenever anyone accepted any kind of digital payment.
Hola, buenas tardes.
Hola, buenas tardes. So anyone that accepted any kind of digital payment, here we go. All right. And again, even that person over there on the side of the road, this person selling whatever he's selling, they can all accept digital payments. You know, you can accept it through your phone. You can accept it through one of those little application thingies. There's many ways to accept digital payment these days. So more and more businesses, we're accepting them. But they very recently, the government now passed a law saying that if you accept a digital payment, that you cannot pass on the bank fee to the customer. So most of you guys already know, if you're coming from the USA, that when you pay with your bank card, your credit card, whatever, at any store, many times, you know, there's a little tiny fee that goes along with that, and that tiny fee is a bank fee. So what happened is that many years ago, you know, when the bank started accepting all these digital payments, they said, yeah, we'll process your payment, but we're going to charge you a tiny fee, which, by the way, it's not so tiny out here. So you know, so a lot of people, so a lot of businesses, what they did is that they simply said, yeah, of course, we'll accept all your digital payments. You know, all the customers will now be able to pay with their credit card, with their digital card, whatever it is, right? But what that means is that now we're gonna have to charge a little fee, you know, and we're just, it's not the business charging the fee, it's the bank charging the fee to the business. And so the business, since again, the margins are so slim, you know, they're not gonna cut into their own tiny profits. And so what they've done is that they just pass on that fee to the customer. So now very recently, Claudia, again, you know, the president, along with all these changes that have been made, one of the changes is the fact that now they made it illegal for any business to charge you that bank fee. So it's forcing the businesses to swallow the bank fee. And so what has everybody done? Again, they've revolted in a sense. They started to boycott digital payments. By the way, this is the bus station here that you would, you know, these are the buses that take you straight to Progreso, okay? Just so you can show you exactly where we are. All right, we're not too far away from the center of the city here. So, long story short, a lot of people out there, you know, a lot of businesses, since they know that now they can't charge you that fee anymore, they're either A, not accepting digital payments anymore, or B, just increasing the price on every single item, no matter whether you're paying with cash or not. Buenos días. So no matter whether you're paying with cash or you're paying with credit card, you know, some businesses are you know, they don't want to lose the digital payments, so now they're just increasing the price on everything. Or what many businesses are doing is they're simply, you know, they're just not accepting digital payments anymore. And why is that? Well, again, because now they got to eat that fee. And so as the government tightens up here, you know, because it happens, you know what I mean? It's happening. It's not, you know, this is why I'm making this video. I don't want to sugarcoat anything. I don't want to be out there, you know, letting anyone know, you know, only the beautiful side of living out here. There's the good, the bad, the ugly, you know, so that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about this giant transition that's happening all over Mexico. So what are the people doing? Well, they're basically revolting in the best way that they can, whether it's through boycotts, whether it's through simply, you know, finding a way around the system. As you guys know, you know, there's a lot of organized crime out here, you know, cartels, whatever you want to call them, you know, and they always find a way around it. And in fact, you know, a lot of people even say, oh, the president is the cartel president. So you would think that, you know, she would be doing things to help them. So with that said, you know, are these new things like the biometric ID, the digital cash only, you know, society, you know, are these things really going to be helping out the organized crime? No, of course not. And the organized crime always finds a way around it. And not just the organized crime, but the everyday regular people always find a way around it. There's always a way around it. And this is no different. Again, a lot of these things have not even been implemented yet. They're about to get implemented, and yet everyone's already has a solution, and nobody's playing ball. Look, even these buses, and all this new technology, whether the buses or you're renting the digital bikes or whatever it is you're doing out here, they all require some sort of digital imprint, some sort of digital something. You know, you got to get like a special card, and you got to use that card in order to swipe that card to get on the bike or get on the bus or get on to whatever it is you're going to do. And long story short, a lot of people have been finding ways around it. You know, basically they'll get on the bus and they'll just give the bus driver cash, and the bus driver takes the cash and he puts it in his pocket. Or a lot of people they'll give him gifts. You know, so they'll get on the bus. You know, they're basically get off of work. They go to the little corner store, they buy a 6-pack of beer, they get on the bus with the beer, and they'll give one beer, you know, to the bus driver. Whatever it is, there's always a way around it, and that's never going to change. That's why I love Mexico so much. But, you know, again, it's like on one end, it seems like they're implementing that digital prison out here, and on the other end, you know, everyone out here is like, no, you know, we don't want any of that, and we know how we can get around it, and there's no real authority. There's no real any kind of authority, you know, to like really implement this stuff. The reason that, again, as I was talking about earlier, the reason they can implement a lot of these things in like the US or Canada or even Europe is because, well, the authority figures out there work for the government, and they're there. Their only job is to make sure that you comply with all these things. That's why, you know, they're not stopping crimes or anything like that. No. They're you know, going to businesses like this and they're starting to harass businesses like this. This is what they do in your country, not out here. You know, again, if all of a sudden the police start coming out to these businesses and they start harassing people, you know, simply because, oh, where's your digital ID? You know, how come you're not accepting this? Where's your tax this? Where's your tax? Everyone's going to revolt on them and basically kick their ass. And again, you know, the police themselves are implicit on this. The police themselves look the other way, and so on and so forth. Again, or they work with organized crime. They all work together. A lot of people say to me, oh, Jose, what about these businesses? You know, do they get a visit by the cartel, you know, to pay a certain fee so they can work here every day? And I'm like, well, it depends on the city. You know, and depends on what you consider cartel or mafia or government or whatever. Because again, you know, in some places it's simply the government. The government's the one that's going to come pay a visit to these people with a little clipboard, you know, and basically, you know, force them to comply. Or, you know, again, it's some organized crime syndicate, whatever it is. But that's what I'm trying to get at. You know, right now we're on two opposite ends of the spectrum here, and it's very, very difficult, you know, for them to try to implement, you know, this whole digital ID, digital prison, digital system, you know, in a country that is not run by the NWO, that is not run by the big banks. I mean, I know a lot of people can argue this, and in fact, I would love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments section. I would love for this this conversation to continue even after I'm done with this video, because I do want, you know, to hear your thoughts, and I want to continue this conversation. But look, long story short, it's like, you know, they got two competing factions here, you know, whether it's, you know, just the regular old Joes doing the regular old Joe jobs out here, and the government, and, you know, again, the mafia, cartel, whatever you want to call it. And so, you know, once you're living out here and you really see how things fly and how things work out here, you quickly realize, oh, wait a minute, you know, the government really doesn't have that much control. Even the organized crime doesn't have as much control as a lot of people think. I was hinting earlier as to, you know, why the president, the government, is saying that they want to implement these things, and it's simply because they were saying that, look, when something bad happens to you, you know, we have now a way to find you, now a way to track you. You know, it's all for your own good, for your own personal safety. But for a lot of people, they're you know, basically rejecting all that because they know it's a lot of crap. They know that at the end of the day, you know, why is it that some people, you know, have to you know, why is it some people have to comply and others don't have to comply? You know, what is the problem there? You know, what is it? You know, there's a lot of stuff there that it doesn't make a lot of sense until you come out here. And again, on one end, they're trying to implement this digital system. On the other end, they're trying to make it as difficult as humanly possible for you to use the digital system, as I was explaining earlier with the bank fees every time they use your bank card, as I was explaining earlier, with so many other things. But anyways, as I wanted to touch on the safety issue for a minute. Look, the reality is that for anyone watching these videos, you don't have any problems when it comes to safety. Merida, where I'm at right now, is the safest city in all of Mexico and the second safest city in all the Americas. But there are other parts of Mexico that are a bit scary. They are a bit dangerous, but again, not dangerous to you. Dangerous to the average Mexican, perhaps. Dangerous to maybe the working class. Dangerous to maybe, just regular people for many obvious reasons. That's not what this episode's about. But long story short, anyone that comes out here to visit or live is going to be very safe and enjoy a lot of the safety that comes from living in a free country, a really free country. Again, there are pluses and there are negatives. I don't want to say that it's all rosy and peachy, but that's the thing. At the end of the day, where in the USA, for example, or Canada, they're starting to implement all these things, or they have already implemented these things throughout the years, and most people, they know that they're helpless. They know that they can't do anything, in order to fight this off. And if they do, they're going to prison. They're going to be in big trouble. They can't even talk about some of these things. But out here, it's not like that at all. It's not even, again, like I said, most of the Mexican population is just laughing and just saying, it's like, oh, okay, I want to see how they're going to implement it. Oh, really? That's the reason that they're giving. Oh, really? Oh, man, we elected her and we thought she was going to be different, and she just happens to be the same as everybody else. And like I said, Mexico is getting better and better each and every day. The gentrification that's happening, and for the most part is extremely positive. And this is part of that gentrification aspect of it, at the end of the day. And so, most people are rejecting this. And in Mexico being a free capitalistic country, well, then guess what? The market dictates. The market is going to decide as to whether or not they're going to be able to implement these things or not, as to whether or not these things are going to work or not. Again, look, for example, these buses all of a sudden started to have, a bit too much. They were asking for a bit too much, when it comes to riding the bus, meaning that, hey, they started to upcharge. They started to cut back on some of the routes. They started to basically go backwards. Yeah. They started to go backwards, all right? And so what a lot of people basically did is said, you know what? We don't care. We don't need those buses. We can just get back on the old buses. And guess what? All the old buses that were basically retired and they were put out to pasture, well, then guess what? They all came out of, they all just came back out, out of hiding. And here they are. Now you're seeing these buses back out. And these buses are not on the grid. They're all privately owned. They'll accept anything except for digital payments. And so at the end of the day, are people going to be forced? Are people going to be forced to use, the digital ID or digital payment, or they're not going to get around? No, of course not. Of course not. Because again, the old bus system it just came back online. All right, and like I said, it's like one thing after the other. And so these buses here in Merida only accept digital payments, but these same buses in Guadalajara accept cash payments. And like I said, every place is different, okay? And so that's the thing. The people out here actually do vote with their wallet. Actually, capitalism is actually alive and well here. It's not crony capitalism, even though we have it out here, but it's nowhere near to what you're used to, or again, what you're putting up with in your own home countries. It's very different. And so a lot of people here share a lot more freedom to basically decide whether or not they're going to participate or not. And so of course they're going to keep incentivizing people to participate and sign on to this digital grid, but then they don't have to, and they just won't. It's very rare for most of them to be completely on that digital grid. Some people will, some people will be 100% bought in and sold. Some people will only, get on the digital grid just for the few things that they have to have that digital ID for. And others are just not going to participate at all. Period, end of story. And it's not going to affect, jobs. It's not going to affect most businesses. It's not going to affect daily life as much as many people think. And so if that's like a main concern for anyone out there that is looking into moving out here, but again is having some sort of pause because of things like the biometric ID or the, you know, trying to implement a cashless society. It's not happening. All right, it's not happening. Again, they're still living out here in the past, as you guys can see from, you know, many of the buildings and many of the statues and many of the things that you see around, and that's not going to change. All right, it's a beautiful world out here, it really is. And like for me, a freedom-loving American that doesn't have any freedom left back at home in the USA anymore, this is why I call Mexico home. This is why I call, you know, Merida Yucatan home. Well, I call Merida Yucatan home because I love the weather, I love the culture, I love many aspects of this region of Mexico. It might not be for everybody, but it is for me. But long story short, you know, why am I gonna stay living out here no matter what? It's because, again, out here I get to be truly free, and I get to really truly do the things that I want to do. And again, as long as I'm not hurting anybody, as long as I'm not impeding on anybody's life or anything like that, then I can live out here, you know, without having to worry. And look at all these people. Just again, it's 12:30 p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon, and everyone is just chilling at the park. We're all just chilling, whether we're waiting for the bus, you know, whether you're getting lunch, you know, whether you're just hanging out with mom, you know, whatever it is you're doing, right by the fountain. And it's a beautiful thing, you know, it's just a really, really beautiful thing. And it's a beautiful life out here, it really is. And like I feel very happy and very blessed to be out here and to be living out here. And again, you know, you have the freedom to do whatever you want, you know, and as long as, again, as long as you're not bothering or hurting anybody, you're good to go. And I think that's it, guys. You know, I think we've made this video long enough. Bueno días. I think, you know, I'm already running out of steam. It's getting nice and hot and toasty. I'm getting nice and sweaty. And I think, you know, I don't know what else to show you. I'm not going to go any further deeper into, you know, into the city because, well, you know, again, we've already walked enough today, and you guys have already seen other parts of the city in my other videos. So at this point, we're going to start wrapping it up. And if you do want to see more of the city, please check out my other videos where I give you guys bike rides around the city. I walk around other parts of the city. We talk about all kinds of subjects as it pertains to living out here, the good, the bad, the ugly, as I like to mention many times. And again, not too long ago, me and Tree, you know, we met up at this park and we got on one of these buses and we went all the way to Uman. So you guys should check that video out as well. Again, this is a major bus hub here, as you guys can see. And again, as things are changing and getting gentrified and getting better, you know, some things are going backwards as people, you know, might not accept all the changes. And people, again, have the freedom here of choice. They really do have the freedom of choice. It's not a fake freedom of choice. It's a real freedom of choice. People can participate or not. And that's it. You know, to me, that is real freedom, as opposed to back in our own home countries where you have to participate or else. And so thank God out here is not like that at all. So with all that said, guys, I think we're going to wrap this up. Let's get my hat off here. And that's it. Say our last pleasantry. So again, guys, I really hope that you guys enjoyed today's walk and talk, enjoyed today's video. I really hope that this starts a conversation talking about this very important subject. And let me know what's going on in your own home country. Let me know if you're afraid of any of this stuff being implemented out here. And again, let me know your thoughts. Please let me know what you really think about all this stuff, and I would love to hear, you know, back from you guys, and I'll see you guys down in the comments. So with all that said, I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and if you did, you already know what to do. Don't forget to please like, please subscribe, please share, please hit the bell icon, but more importantly than anything else, please stay awesome. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.